Welcome to the No Fear podcast and the No Fear live broadcast. I'm your host, Tony Lauer. If you're into mindset training, performance psychology, personal development, you'll dig this new format. No Fear Live is a unique broadcast, and it's different from the No Fear podcast. We decided to go live because we wanted to create the opportunity to interact with people like you all over the world, where anyone can log in and ask questions, and in some cases, you may even get invited into the show. The great thing about the live broadcast is that it's much more personal for the listener. That's you. Remember, self-defense isn't always about a confrontation with someone else. The first and most important fight is winning the one inside your head. My friend, Bruce Cardenas, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Thank you very much. And I'm honored to be here. It's a great day.
We had a little bit of technical issues, and we got you on. I'm super excited about that. It's always the case. You're not alone. We have that every second week something glitches, and we want to blame StreamYard, but who knows?
It's the dumb Marine in me. I couldn't figure it out.
No,
Sorry.
You just finished eating your crayons and
yeah.
Bruce, I'm glad we finally got a chance to connect. I was in preparation for this. I was thinking, like, the first time I met you, which was at I don't know if it was at one of Dan Fleischman's events or Bedros event, but then I was thinking about, I was listening to the talk you did with Bryce Henson, which was fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
And you mentioned the garage gym games from back, and I was a guest speaker at one of those things, and I was thinking, oh my God, I think that's where I know you from. And you had a Quest booth. There, and because I remembered I said, I know this guy from somewhere else, and I think we know each other from back in the what was that, probably around 2015, 15, 12.
Yeah. We just kind of dove into CrossFit, and I remember I think it was Swanee, Georgia was one of the places I went for the garage games. Yeah, and that was exciting times.
That's where I met you. But let's start in order. You know, you're starting to do more podcasts, which is great. And because you've got it's not just your story, because, you know, like the History Channel commercial, you remember they had like, everyone has a story, that whole thing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, everyone does have a story, but there's something different about yours and something you do that I've made a couple of notes on, but I wanted to come out naturally. I'm not going to tell you what it is, because you know what it is. It's kind of like, right, if you were going to identify like that unique DNA strand that you have that other people don't have, and it'll come out as you talk. But it's something that I'm fascinated with, because I don't feel like I have it and other people have it. My two of my kids, well, actually all my kids, like I'll see them talking. Even my wife Jessie, they just make friends with everybody, and I'm like ready to stab people in the eye. I'm looking for the escape route. I'm wondering, what's this fucker's angle? And and they're making friends, and it's a gift you have. And
I have those moments too, though. Believe me.
I know you do, as Marine, as a cop, and then as a bodyguard. You've had an amazing career, and it's funny. I get hit up a lot by people asking to be on my show, and a lot of them I go, I don't know you, I don't know your product, I don't know your service, I got no connection to you. And there's a few times that we've gotten together, we've had lunch together, we chit-chatted at different events. And, you know, I was always thinking, until I invited you, like, what is the angle? Because my audience, well, I mean, it's right in there, mostly military, mostly law enforcement, martial artists. So they can relate to, you know, the former Marine and the cop in you. You're also a, physical culture. You work out. You've always done that, even before, you know, Marines. You're bodybuilding. You're strength training. And then it hit me, because we talked about this at lunch, about your fear of public speaking and fear of putting yourself out there. And I want to kind of wrap on that, but I'm just preloading the audience and you on that here's a guy, you guys can't tell how massive Oh, wait a minute. Now you can. Hold on a second. I'm going to put this picture up here. Check this out. I'm a pretty big guy. I look like a hand puppet next to Bruce.
Stop.
Okay. You know, he's out posing me. He's out angling me here.
Yeah.
But he's a huge man. You can't tell from how he's being recorded here and where he's sitting. So he's a big guy, Marine, police officer, reserve police officer, power lifter, and still had the authenticity and self-awareness to when we were talking about fears, self-doubt, and stuff like that. And I was like, well, this is the No Fear podcast, and it's an amazing thing to let everybody know, like everyone deals with that, right? You know, it doesn't matter what your external facade is and what have you. Okay, that's my preamble. So I'm excited to talk to you about that stuff, because you have so much to share and so much to learn. In fact, I sent one of your interviews to my son, who's 32 years old, in the fitness space up in LA, and I said, please listen to this. So much to learn. So your role, that chapter of mentor coach, has been officially bestowed upon you. And
that's great. I'd love to connect with him if he's up in LA.
Yeah. I'll definitely make that happen. So let's just do your we're stuck in an elevator, your elevator speech. Let people know, just your background, that, Marine, police, bodyguard, quest, just that little quick story.
Yeah, and feel free to interrupt if I'm dragging it out or I'm too long. But
no, I got a bunch of questions for you once you lay the groundwork.
Listen, middle class kid from New Jersey, grew up in a very small town called Highbridge, and I always had a boyhood dream of being a cop. My uncle was a cop, my neighbor was a cop. It was just something, when you're a young boy, you're going to be a fireman, a policeman, whatever, pilot, an astronaut. And I always wanted to be a cop. I had no real path to get there because I was a lazy, dreaming student. I averaged D's unless it was PE or woodwork. I really had no attention to detail on school. So when I got out, and it's interesting, I was one of 5 kids. My parents never had the college conversation with me. I was the only one that didn't have the college conversation. I figured that they thought I'd be a blue collar worker. And I worked for my dad. He was a contractor part-time. But about a year out of high school, I went to the police chief, who was a local 6-man department, and they knew me really well. I used to ride along. I said, hey, chief, I really want to be a cop. What do I need to do? And in his own kind way, he said, you're young, you're dumb, and you're immature, without saying those words. But
right.
That's what I left with. He said, but I tell you what, if you go in the Marine Corps, he didn't say any other branch. If you go in the Marine Corps, and he was a former Marine, he goes, I'll hire you the day you get out. I said, you got it. I grabbed my best friend, Jim, and said, listen, we need to get down to the recruit depot. Went to the Marine Corps. After testing, whatever we had to do, we were on a plane to Paris Island, and I realized there's a big world out there. I thought New Jersey was the entire country till I realized. Got in the Marine Corps, learned some great skills, grew up, 12-week boot camp, and learned that, wow, it's not only a big world, it's a fascinating world, and I met a lot of interesting people. And that's where even culturally, I grew up in a small middle-class town, metal workers, and everyone was predominantly white. Got thrown in the Marine Corps, my first assignment, open bay, and there's black guys from Jamaica, there's white dudes from Alabama who made it clear their granddaddies were, with the Grand Wizard and the KKK. And it's interesting. I knew nothing about culture, but I learned really quickly. And it's interesting, when we ended up going to Beirut, our unit, when the embassy got bombed. You didn't see color when you were in the Marine Corps, man. We just worked hand in hand because, I don't want to die. I just want to make sure the guy next to me is going to make sure, you look out for me. So I grew up, but my goal was, all I did was work out, because if you're in the military, you're either working out or you're partying. I worked out, and I figured out, one of my bosses said, school's important, Bruce. He goes, don't just be a lughead. So there was one of those programs like Pepperdine, a remote learning. So I did that at night. I got my college degree. I was on the powerlifting team. And it was actually the first time, and I'm going to unwind a little bit. I forgot to tell you this. I got my black belt in Taekwondo when I was in high school. All the katas and forms and all that cool stuff, right? Breaking boards. When I was in the Marine Corps, I got my ass beat, punched, beat up. And I realized I didn't know anything about fighting. I just had a black belt. You think you're a local badass, right? Like Karate Kid. I literally had never really, a couple of scuffles in high school, but I'd never really been in a fight. And I actually got my ass kicked. That's why I went to my workout partner. I said, you fight a lot in the Marine Corps. You end up getting in fights, and you go to bars, or you just hang out. So I said, I want to learn how to fight. Like I don't want to ever get beat up again. So that's where I started. It was probably even before the UFC. We just were work out and learn how to fight or wrestle and do all the things, the fundamentals. So that was a skill I picked up, and I've never been great at it. And I've always and I've learned this, as you know, there's always someone bigger, stronger, and faster in life, and it's okay. So I ended up winding down the Marine Corps. I was in Camp Pendleton up north of San Diego for a powerlifting meet, and there was a career day going on base. And I stopped into this, big open bay, and there was IBM and these different companies, but there's CHP was there, all these different agencies. And I said, well, shit, beautiful weather, beautiful people, and you get paid to live here? Let me start processing to be a cop. And this was long before the internet. I got paper applications, and it took me about 9 months of sending in applications. And fast forward, January of 1988, I joined the LA Police Academy. But while I was processing, I got a job, crazy enough, and talk about relationships. I knew nothing. There was an ad in the paper to sell cars. I went to the local Mitsubishi dealership, knew nothing about selling cars. And for 8 months, I was the number one salesman there. Nice. And my background officer went to the owner of the dealership. The owner said, I don't want to lose Bruce. Like, I don't want him to be a cop. But obviously, it was my boyhood dream. So kind of got in the LAPD, and I don't know if you have any questions there, but I can keep going. But
no, go from so you're. I mean, obviously, what age were you when you came to that meet in San Diego, or
I got out of the Marine Corps. I didn't get on LAPD till I was 25. Okay. So, and then, keep in mind, it was well over a year of the processing, because it's a process, because I had a knee injury. So I had to get records from back east. So everything's a process to get on. It's nothing's electronic then,
25 back in. So we've certainly, civilization has peaked. We know that we're now on the other side. The last 3 years have shown us that we're like things peaked in the 80s and 90s for certainly for us. But 25 LA, law enforcement, you're one of the questions that was interesting, because I had a question was the evolution, and I just want to show some people some pictures here. Of course, this is the most famous person you've ever stood beside right here in this
absolutely
picture,
yeah
right?
Absolutely.
But
and I knew you long before you knew me.
Did you?
Yeah, or of you.
Like, okay, we got to arrest this guy. Here's this guy Blauer. That was a fun day at one of Blackside, Mike Chandler, Mike O'Hearn. He and I have gotten Tim Kennedy, and is that Ray at the end there? No, yeah,
Ray Cash, right?
Yeah, it's a weird angle of him.
All exceptional human beings, by the way. Every one of them has an amazing story.
So good. You know what? The people that are around Bedros, he's like a magnet for that stuff. Just another special human. And you have very similar spirit and energy of his.
He's actually put it in my brain, because he was kind enough. We've met. We've kind of helped each other, reciprocal. And he gave me a half-day coaching, and he said, Bruce, listen, he goes, everyone, I think you said this at the beginning, everyone has a story or a book in them. Right. He said, you probably have 7 books in you. He goes, you need to pull it out of your ass and figure out how you start telling those stories, because you have stories and people want to hear stories. So he's kind of helped me get over this fear.
Yeah. I'm just going to run through here for people who just because I grew up in the 60s, and so there's a part of me, TV was going from black and white to color. I was transfixed by. I'm gonna remove this for 1 second, just share this. I don't know if we talked about this at the time we had lunch together, but my heroes in the 60s were, I didn't know it, who Bruce Lee was, but Bruce Lee in the Green Hornet, Robert Conrad in the Wild Wild West. And all the action shows, Manic, Streets of San Francisco, and so I was afraid of fear. I was afraid of violence. I was afraid of losing. I was a good athlete, but I was scared to death of competition. And I would always compete, but I was more afraid of the physiology. Nobody ever told me, hey, when your heart's racing, you get butterflies in your stomach, your palms are sweating. That's okay. That's just your biochemistry. I always associated that with, I don't know something I'm supposed to know. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel this way. And no fucking coach or mentor ever said that. And that's like my whole thing with the whole No Fear program. There are things you're going to do afraid, just do them. And if you have the need to, or the responsibility to do them over and over again, that fear will dissipate. It's called stress inoculation. You remember that from your training in the military and law enforcement.
Yeah.
But the first time you arrest somebody to the 10th time you arrest somebody, your physiology completely changes as your body adapts to that. But anyways, I wanted to show people some of the stuff here, because I will sometimes, I'm not going to say this publicly, so we'll edit it out of the broadcast. Just kidding. I will sometimes just go to your feed, man, and flip through pictures of you with people like this, like freaking icon, Clint Eastwood, right? Like Sammy Davis Jr., like just insane. Like people watching this, we've got some old timers on the show here. Warren Beatty, like every single person that through your relationships. But I think what's fascinating, with this, and it's so diverse, from physical culture to music to I think that what's interesting for people, and what I was saying is, like me, is that, like, as a fan, and I've met, not to the degree that you've met, but I've met a lot of famous people, and I'm cool with them. But like the first time I'm hanging out with Stallone on the set of Rocky V, I was there to help continue the training of Tommy Morrison. I'd become friends with the owner of Ringside, John Brown. And he said, "Hey, I need you to go on the set of a movie, make sure Tommy keeps doing his road work and his pad work." Okay, what movie? Rocky V. Rocky V, fucking Stallone. Holy shit, okay. So he sent me on this, and I find myself in Stallone's trailer talking to him about boxing and fighting. I had spent some time with the great Sugar Ray Robinson in LA. I had amazing stories about that. I spent time with Sugar Ray Leonard when he fought Duran in Montreal. And Stallone, of course, loves boxing. And we're talking about this, and we're actually up in his trailer, just me and him. And I'm showing him some of the things that I've modified as far as footwork and angles. So I find myself doing this, Bruce, like here, like this, throwing stuff, and Stallone's doing stuff back and forth. And then all of a sudden, we're just having this normal conversation, because he's relating to me just as a tactical athlete. Right. And I said, I got to say something. He goes, "Yeah, what's up?" He goes, I go, we're sitting here, we're talking, we're shadow boxing. I'm showing you stuff. I've been studying, violence, fear, and aggression for decades. And I'm showing you some of my things, something that I showed Sugar Ray Leonard before his Duran fight, blah, blah, blah. I said, but inside, there's a part of me that's going, and I look at him, this is Sylvester Stallone. And I scream. He starts laughing. He punches me in the shoulder. He says, "Dude, I'm just like you. When I gotta go to the bathroom, I go to the bathroom. When I'm hungry, I gotta eat. When I sleep, I gotta..." So my question, that was just like a preamble. I got excited, because what I do, I've never told you this, is sometimes I'll sit and I'll just scroll through your Instagram at the celebrities you've had the occasion and opportunity to work with, wondering what you were thinking while there, because you have the tactical professional background, but also there's something that happens in behavior when you meet somebody who's the world sees as a VIP. Of course. And so I just wanted you to I don't even know what the question is there, but
yeah, I know what it is.
Yeah, go for it.
So yeah, it's interesting. When I first, obviously I started doing the security work when I was a cop. It was just it was a side job. I was working for a retired Beverly Hills sergeant, and after I worked for him about a year, I kind of figured out, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, even though I didn't know what that word meant then. And I just said I could start my own business, and got my license insurance. And I just started reaching. I had some relationships, and it's interesting. It goes back to relationship capital, which we could talk about. But I started working for these people, and then my one friend owned a limousine company. Said, "Hey, I got Courtney Love. I need you to take care of her." And the clients just started coming, and I met people. But my point is, sometimes you meet people. What's that thing? Sometimes you meet your heroes, and you wish you didn't. Those experiences. And then there's other times, like the first time I really met some icons. Like I worked for Sammy Davis Jr. pretty early on. Now, by the way, none of those photos I took, there weren't even iPhones then. I think I might have a flip phone once at some point, but it was a pager at the beginning. Right. That photo of Sammy Davis Jr. and I ended up in People magazine. Unfortunately, he passed away about 6 months after we did that Hollywood parade. But my mom calls me and says, "Bruce, you're in People magazine." And I was like, "What?" And so, of course, I go out and buy 10 copies. And but my point is, I realized it was so exciting for my mom, and I realized there's people I was meeting, and there's 3 people I worked for that were exciting to her. I met Charlton Heston, I worked for towards the end of his tenure. Obviously, he was the president of NRA, and we spent 2 days together. And then Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra, I worked for a couple times. But what I found is, you're right, there's the little boy in all of us. And sometimes I'd be in rooms, or I'd be in the White House, or I'd be next to a celebrity and think, God, like, how'd I end up here? Like, I'm not the smart, I still reflect back kind of that dumb kid from New Jersey, but obviously I'm there for a reason. They respect my experience and what I'm doing and the service I bring. But it's still a little bit of a, interesting, you're still like, do I belong here? I'm not saying imposter syndrome, but it's kind of like weird. Like it's sometimes an interesting feeling depending on who you're around.
Let's like pivot dynamically, because you brought up the word relationship capital, and I want everyone listening to there's an expression that got popular last few years is, your net worth is your network. Yeah. Right. Like who do you know? So that's how do you describe or talk about relationship capital? It's pretty obvious, but a lot of your success is because it's not just like, someone did you a favor. Of course you were in the right place at the right time, but if you had been an asshole or didn't understand how to network or communicate or be there, you still wouldn't have gotten the job, or you'd have done one or two and everyone would have said, this guy sucks, don't hire him.
Exactly. And that happens a lot in this industry. I think I quickly figured out, like I said, I didn't go to school for it, but I had the social cues or the EQ to figure out what someone wanted and how to provide a service and still stay out of their way. And it kind of became my reputation. Like, people did keep calling me. And I even had artists, and I swear to God, I could tell you names, urban artists, Black artists, who after I did a couple of gigs for them, their manager would pull me aside and said, Bruce, are you more available? You stay out of her business. You just provide a service. She feels safe. You're paying attention. And I hate to say it, but some of these security guys get in their positions and they don't pay attention. They think they're part of the posse. They get in the circle. And I always stayed on the outside of the circle. To this day, and I've actually lost clients because of guys I've sent on the road. I couldn't make it with some really huge name. Jennifer Lopez was going to Mexico. I couldn't make it. But I told my guy, I said, no matter what, you never sit down and eat with them. Stay at the bar, stay at the front door. Never, ever sit with the client, ever. I don't care. The fifth night they're there, they said, oh, come on, join us. It's our last night here. He sat down at the table with them. Not the end of the world, but 3 glasses of wine later, and I don't know anything's going on there in Mexico. He tells me, oh, the trip went amazing. And then the manager calls me and says, Bruce, I got good news and bad news. You're fired. The good news is I will work with you personally again, but don't send some shithead to Mexico that's representing you. And I really learned it's really hard to scale a business like this because they want you, just like you. I want to be trained by Tony. I get clients, Bruce, where are you? What do you mean you can't make it? That guy you sent last night was not you. And I'm thinking, well, I've trained them. No, they're not you. They don't get it. They don't have the social cues. I've had clients. I have a client now for 30 years. He knows my name. We don't talk about anything. His assistant tells me what he's doing. I get him from point A to point B. Good night, Bruce. Thank you very much. That's all he knows. And it's been 30 years like that. So, and that's hard. Sometimes people say, what do you talk about? He's one of the wealthiest guys in the world. What do you talk about? I said, nothing. He doesn't ask me anything and I don't ask him anything. There's no small talk. How's your weather? How's your family?
Right.
But I'm okay with that.
Right.
That's where people can't switch gears to go. We're in the service industry, right? So to me, I can serve someone to stay in the corner out of my place. And then I know another time, maybe when I'm in the nutrition space or selling product, then I could be outwardly and spoken. But a lot of people can't adjust themselves mentally to that EQ.
That's yeah.
And so that's one of my expertise.
Yeah. No, for sure. That emotional intelligence is sorely lacking in most people. But as people, in the last 10 years, the level of entitlement and just, people just think. And you brought up a really, really interesting point of like the people thinking they're part of the posse as opposed to, just like be the sniper, stay on the outside. Now, I had one of the guys that became one of my best trainers. I remember a guy he was a cop. When a trainer of mine, this guy Rick, says, "Hey, Adrian's really good. You should take a look at him and bring him on the mobile training team." And I'm like, "Which one's Adrian again?" Like that guy over there. I said, "I've never seen him do anything. Like I can tell he's a stud. He was a professional stuntman, parkour, free runner, like really good shape, unreasonably good looking, like one of those studs, right?
Right.
And it was like, I said, well, how's he going to get on the MTT if he has no confidence? Like, I've never seen him do anything. Tell him to like step in and he got the message, and then he stepped up, and he became a very important part of my company. Ironically, he's now serving in the military. He started working for me in his late 20s, and then there was a cutoff at 32 to join. And he moved to California, man. I'm like, oh, this guy's like, I'm going to hand my company over to him. And he says to me one day, he goes, hey, I don't know how to bring this up, but it's been my dream to serve. And I said, well, bring me a fucking beer and go get lunch or something. No, like to serve. And I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, it's my cutoff now, National Guard, Special Forces. He goes, I thought you'd be really upset. And didn't know. I said, I am fucking upset. I said, right. The CEO is, I can't believe this. I've invested in so much in you, but your friend, go fucking do this, man. Go.
Yeah.
And, that was about 6 years ago, and he's still just loving it. Just loving it. But
that's great.
He had what you talked about. He had that. If I had said, because I've sent him to do stuff at Naval Special Warfare, down at Fort Bragg, and other gigs where I couldn't make it, knowing he would not screw up. He just had that social intelligence, that EQ, and all of that. Really interesting thing with you. And I want people to just unpack this a little bit. Because I heard this in one of your conversations where you went from being a cop to starting the protection business, the Bodyguard, stuff like that. It wasn't like some venture capitalist said, hey, go do this. There was an opportunity, with a friend who had a limousine company.
Yeah.
And it was your reputation. And I want everyone listening to this, because there's a lot of people who listen to our show are in law enforcement, military, and they're going to transition out. And there's a skill, and it's easy to be, and this is such an important thing in this day and age, because there's so many people that not inflate, but just assume because they were in the military or law enforcement that they get a gig.
Right.
And it can teach you a lot of things about focus, about discipline, about a mission, and now you have a different mission. But can you talk a little bit about just, again, the story of how you seized the opportunity, what you saw there that turned into, a massive Bodyguard or EP service, but also talk about, as a mentor, as a coach, what that is, if you know what I'm getting at. There's go for it.
So there's definitely something with me, and I call it it was a mind shift or mindset I had to have, because my buddy was referring these clients to me, and I realized I still had the cop in me. It's part of your DNA, but and I experienced it because I hire a lot of cops, or I have, and and God bless, most of my friends are cops, but they have a little bit of entitlement issue, the perks of being a cop and whatever the benefits. And I said, this is not it. This is truly a service industry, and you have to switch your mindset. And I switched it very quickly to realize I have a service they need. I have the intellectual, capacity to understand what they need. I know about ingress and egress. And I'm not a big, meathead like a Bodyguard, like 200, 300 pound guy or 300 pound guy you see at the door. I was more like a strategic thinker, like how I got people in and out of places without being seen. But one thing I try and tell people, you have to have that mindset of it. It's really a service industry, and not everyone's adapted to that. They're almost like I've had clients that have asked me literally to walk their dog, go get the mail. Do you mind getting the mail out of the mailbox? And I have guys that say, well, I don't get paid to do that. I said, well, unfortunately, we're out of the state, we're staying at their estate. Of course, they're going to ask us to do things. And if it's beneath you, then you're not obviously the right, it sounds great. I want a Marine sitting on the sniper, tree looking for bad guys coming over the wall. Well, the reality is that, we have cameras for that. And yeah, sure, we're proactive if people come over the wall, and that does happen. But There's other mundane things that people ask you, like carry their luggage to their car. And I've just had that mind shift of, hey, I'm in the service industry. I'm getting paid. As long as I'm doing my job and paying attention, nothing's beneath me. And a lot of people don't do that. And that's one thing. It's crazy. I used to always think ahead of what the client needed. And I observed and I knew, okay, one of my clients I went to the Bahamas with for a video shoot. And at the end of the shoot, we were walking back to the hotel and she said, Bruce, I don't know if you ever thought about this, but you should think about being in the management business. Which I knew nothing about. She goes, you do more for me than my manager does. Huh. You had the water in the car. You knew she was big on having hand sanitizer. Like when she would shake hands, she liked to, you have the handy wipes, and you just do everything. And my manager doesn't do any of that. He just takes it for granted. So that was really a big compliment. I realized, yeah, I do go above and beyond. I do whatever it takes to make that client's experience, fulfilled.
I love that. That. You're the type of person that always would open a door just because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And
yeah, of course.
On that, do you notice people that don't do it, or is it so selfless and natural for you? Do you notice when people don't behave that way?
I notice. I mean, it's in my DNA, especially if people are working with me. I notice what they do and don't do. But yeah, I mean, but you also have to know, like, I have clients that literally said, "Don't get the door for me. Don't touch the door. Like, I want to get my own door." And yeah, I quickly figure that out, right? So not everyone, even the wealthiest, some people want to be self-sufficient, and then there's others that are, they become a little codependent on everyone in their life. I've had clients literally in another state call me and say, "I can't find the keys to my Range Rover. What should I do?"
Huh.
Holy shit! Maybe call the dealership, but you want me to call them for you? I mean, yeah. Right. Sometimes people become a little codependent on what people have in their life. So
that's wild. That's a great.
Yeah, right.
You said something in my research on you. I love this talk, and I made a note. I got to get you to share it. It was when you had just, I think you were your first field training officer, FTO. With the picture and the concept of the spirit of the law talk. I need you to share that because it's fantastic.
Yeah, my first training officer was a hardcore guy. I mean, I was 25. He had to been probably towards the end of his career. He was a Vietnam vet, so he was slightly older. And I remember this first day in the car, and if you police car, there's the console, but there's a place where you can make notes, and they still have them even in the cars now. Because if you're taking down a description. And he drew this picture. It was a circle with a face, and it had these two big ears and two big eyes and nothing else. He says, "You know what that is, Cardenas? That's you." He goes, "I need you to be all ears and eyes." And he goes, "You don't need to run your mouth or talk a lot." And I'm like, okay. And of course, it's 100 degrees out. You have to wear long sleeves, shirts when you're out of the academy. I said, "No problem." And I was petrified of him, to be honest with you. Because I didn't want to fail, and it's crazy. Even though I was in the Marine Corps and I knew direction and navigation, LA City is 585 square miles, and I had a hard time grasping north, south, east, and west because the streets are kind of cockeyed, right?
Right.
And we'd be driving, and he would stop and say, "Which way are we going?" And I'd be paralyzed. I say, "Northeast." He goes, "Yeah, what the fuck?" He goes, "What if we start getting?" And by the way, I learned so much from him, but it was a fear way of learning. He said, "If we're getting shot at, how are you calling for help if you don't even know where the fuck we are?" Anyway, it was tough love, and by the time I got done, but my point to all this and how he treated people also kind of changed. He was a hardcore guy, and he treated everyone the same. We had some hardcore white bikers up in Tujunga, Sylmar, which is a rough area of LA. And I thought, because I thought, is this guy a racist? But he was rough with everybody. But I learned a lot. I learned how to treat people and how not to treat people. I don't know if I've only told a couple of this publicly, but one time we had hooked up this white biker dude for warrants, and we were bringing him to the station. And I think I might have been doing it a little more to impress him. You escort people by the handcuffs from behind, and I was definitely manhandling him. I was like pulling him. Put him on the cage, hooked him up, and the lieutenant saw me, and he called me and said, "Hey, Cardenas, you got a minute?" He says, "What's that guy in here for?" Now he's got a warrant. He goes, "You know what the warrant's for?" I go, "I don't know." He goes, "Do you know anything about that guy?" I said, "No, not at all." He goes, "Listen," he goes, "I know you're working with Bob, and Bob's a roughneck." He goes, "I like Bob." He goes, "But Bob's known as a roughneck. He will tune people up sometimes, and maybe it's not always warranted." He goes, "You're going to make a decision today which way you're going to go with your career." He says there's a spirit of law and a letter of law. He goes, that guy is someone's cousin, brother, uncle, husband. He goes, you don't know anything about that guy. Yeah, he's a tatted up, white dude. Maybe he's selling a little meth. Who knows? But he goes, just remember how you treat people is gonna set your trajectory for your career. And it really put things in perspective for me. Listen, maybe the guy's down and out. Maybe he had a warrant because his car got impounded. There's 100 reasons why people have situations in life. And it really made me reflect that, listen, a lot of people are one paycheck away from a disaster, right? And it realized there's hardcore criminals, murders, rapists. That's one category. Then there's people that just fall on hard times. Maybe they sold drugs. Maybe they, whatever they did. Does that mean they need to be treated without dignity? And I kind of really had to put everything in perspective that I kind of want to be treated kindly. Just because someone fell on hard times doesn't mean I need to treat them like an asshole, And a lot of people can't get their head around that,
Yeah. Yeah. That was, I love that, letter of law, spirit of law, because there's nothing worse. And it's worse now than it's ever been where, and I remember this just popped in my head. I don't know why, where, I was in a restaurant. This is actually in the 80s. When was it? I remember early 90s. I'm on Hollywood Boulevard with a buddy. We wanted in Canada, we like putting gravy on French fries. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Yeah.
Routine. So we're in there. He orders French fries and says, can I get some gravy on that? And the waitress says, we don't do that. We don't have gravy for French fries. You can have ketchup. You can have mayo. It's like, well, but you've got the this dish with gravy and meat, like a turkey dish.
Yeah.
She goes, oh yeah, that's the gravy's for the turkey. She says, well, can you take a spoonful of the gravy for the turkey and just pour it on the French fries? No, it's for the turkey. It was just couldn't figure out. I don't know, that popped in my head. It's got nothing to do with it, but it's everything. It's the person who goes, no, this is the SOP. This is the protocol. We don't deviate for anything, as opposed to, hey, let's just interact here. Let's have fun.
Yeah. And one thing I found out really quickly is in the academy, and it's a short academy, and I always wish the academies were longer because all they teach you is policies and procedures and tactics. And by the way, I did very well. I graduated #1 as far as tactics in my class and defensive driving, but they never really teach you about how to treat people, how to deal with human beings. They really don't.
Great point.
And I always tell people the world is not black and white. It's very gray. And if you will do very well in life if you live in the gray area. The problem is a lot of cops, I was taught this is what I'm enforcing. I could tell you multiple stories of people I let go that had minor amounts of weed that at the time would have got them 10 years, did minor infractions and things that it didn't warrant destroying someone's life because I thought, well, the spirit of law, they're a good human being. They might have effed up. And that's the problem is it's the spirit of law. It's the letter of law. It's the world's not black and white,
Yeah, I've had those experiences driving somewhere too fast, get pulled over. And, you got one guy who just has a little conversation with you and says, hey, slow down, man.
Yeah,
and then the other guy that, you're there for like an hour, you missed your flight, everything's wrong. And you feel like you're maybe going to get a cavity search any second.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Let's transition to, and everyone out here is like listening to this. Everyone has the potential to be an entrepreneur, even in, and I say that in the spirit of like, what can you do more in your life? And because everyone I meet wants a little bit more of something, whether it's more fitness or more happiness or more money or more time off or more work or whatever. And so there's a philosophical perspective around that. In how do you make that happen? And there's a lot of psychology behind that. So I want you to share your story of the road, the ladder for Quest, because that's a fantastic thing. Because it wasn't like, hey, dude, here's my resume. How much can you pay me?
Yeah,
it was really part of what makes you unique.
Yeah, it's interesting because I used to tell people I've been pretty lucky in my life, and then I realized I've had so many things happen. It can't be luck because it had to been the relationships I've established. And the Quest thing is just the same. I was working out at a local gym. The Bodyguard business was going on, and I was involved with a limousine company. And the founder of Quest, Shannon, she goes by Quest Creator on social media, worked out there with her husband Ron. And one day, you make small talk when you get to see the same faces. And she said, "Oh, we started this protein bar company," and gave me a couple bars. I think we only had 2 flavors at the time. Next day or a couple days later, I said, "Those bars were amazing." I said, "Listen, a friend of mine's doing a celebrity golf tournament up at Riviera Country Club. If you have some extra product," and I didn't know anything about the company, but they were literally brand new. So she, "Well, we don't really have a lot of product, but I can get you a few boxes." So she got me a few boxes of bars. Got him. I went to this golf tournament, and I was doing security there, but not for any one person, just for the event. So I had guys working, and I was talking to the publicist, who's a friend of mine to this day. I said, "Listen, Cheryl," I said, "these bars, my friend owns the company. I'd love to get him some exposure. How do I go about that?" There was no Instagram. There was no nothing. I think Facebook just started. She said, "I tell you what I'll do. I'll get some people on the carpet to try it." There were some people doing whatever blogs or whatever it was at the time. And Mario Lopez was there, and Joan Rivers' daughter, and there's some decent celebrities. I put that all together, and I had them email it to them, and they're like, a week later, like, "Holy cow, how do you know these people?" And I didn't give it a second thought. I just brought some of their product to one of these celebrity events. So over the course of 9 months, we run into each other. She give me product. I do an event. I got it in some celebrities' hands. I have it mailed to Jessica Simpson, and it was on a set of Extra with Mario Lopez, because at the time Mario Lopez was a client, and we did the security on a set of Extra. So actually, I need to find the footage. Mario actually one time on camera was giving the bars out on camera. He would do crazy shit like that. So after about 9 months, and by the way, I went and visited them at their office, which was in the border of Compton and Paramount, if you know LA. It was in this shitty little industrial strip mall park. And when I walked in their office, my first thought was, "Oh, they're not going to be here. They're not going to be in business in 6 months," because it was literally in the hood. And the office they shared was the size of an average 15 by 15 office, but they had those little mini IKEA desks, and there might have been 6 people. And I thought, Jesus, there's no way they're going to be around. But somehow I liked what they were doing. I liked their vibe, and I kept helping them. And 9 months into it, Ron, Shannon's husband, who's the original founder, the main guy, said, "Listen, Bruce, you've been doing so much. We're stealing from you. You keep getting it in people's hands. You're not asking for anything." I said, "No, your bars are great. You give me bars." Like, to me, it was like, "Hey, I'm a meathead getting free protein bars, right?" And they said, "No, listen, Friday we're putting you on the payroll. Do whatever you want with the money. Give it to charity. Keep doing your Bodyguard business. Just, we appreciate your help." And it was a modest salary. It was probably your average American salary. But what happened to me, and it was instilled to me by my father, like that work ethic, DNA kind of thing, with work ethic. And when they started paying me, I was like, "Holy shit, now I really got to prove myself." And while I liked what I did with the security, I fell in love with the process of what was going on. It kind of became my why, because then people started writing us on these blogs saying, "Hey, I lost 30 pounds over the last few months. These Quest bars are my go-to snack. They're gluten-free." The celiac community was reaching out to us, and I started feeling like, wow, we're really changing people's lives. We're not just like selling some bullshit. And I literally started helping them do anything I could. I built out the events department. They would send me emails. Well, I didn't even have a company email. I had in my AOL account then. I say, "Hey, we have this opportunity." I'd use my credit card. I would book the event. I'd just go by the office to get some product, and I would do the event. And my girlfriend at the time was in the fitness space. I said, "Hey, can you come help me do this event?" And I just did. And it just progressed to, I did anything the company needed. And I tell people this, there was no promise of anything with them. They were a startup company. And at the end of 9 years, I was the chief communications officer, and we sold for $1 billion to Atkins. Now, the journey between that was brutal. I mean, yeah, I created the Wow Factory. I created the public relations. I was involved with marketing. I traveled about 40 weekends a year for 6 years straight. I didn't even think about it. I would be on a plane on Thursday and come back Sunday and be at the office Monday. That's where I went to the garage games, the CrossFit games, and bodybuilding shows and martial arts tournaments. And by the way, during this whole process, there was no promise of anything. It wasn't until the very end when Ron, the founder, said, "Hey, we're going to carve up a little, you got some points in the company." And I was like, I don't know what that means. But it was sweat equity. So that was it. I mean, but But if I had to do it over again, I would have definitely done it again. I mean, think about this. If I asked you or anyone, hey, if you committed for 9 years and you could be at the end game, which that'd be pretty cool, right? But so I tell people that when they meet young people that start, or anyone starting a business, maybe think about trying to help them. Don't always have your hand out. I pretty much practice this. I brought value before asking for anything, and that was truly true because they had to basically force me to take money before I could ask for it. So anyway, that's kind of the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah, but it's such an important lesson because there's, I mean, I alluded to it earlier, so many people are entitled. I had this kid that I was mentoring back in the 80s as a martial artist, and his parents were moving. We lived in Canada at the time, from Montreal to Vancouver, and he was now teaching and stuff like this, and the business was growing, and he offered me a chance to pay him if he stayed. Like that was his pitch. I was like, hey, if you put me on salary, I'll stay and help you teach. Otherwise, I got to move to Vancouver. I was like, wow. Dude, like that's not how that works, right? And but it's also a big turnoff. So all of you listening who are thinking about a cottage business, something on the weekend, something at night. You've always wanted to start a martial arts or self-defense business, or you're getting out of military law enforcement. You don't know, right? It's that I love and I feel like I'm stealing stories from Bryce's talk because it was so good. But to piggyback on this, share the FedEx story, right? Did
I tell that one?
Like that's so, and I gotta say this, and it's not to steal any of your thunder.
Yeah.
I relate so much to this. When I would get together with certain high profile people where I was there as their friend, hey, fly here, we're going to Miami, we're going to do this. Like I would show up with the iced tea that I knew this guy, like I didn't work for him. Like he bought my ticket and paid my hotel. I want you here. And I would show up like I know he likes this, and his fucking assistant doesn't remember to do it. It was just I was always one of the reasons I was excited to have to talk with you is as I learn more about how your brain, processes stuff. Like I see all that shit too. I would have to tell people that I've since fired from my mobile training team, where I'd get there at let's say one of our combatives camp, and I'd have to gather the team around and go, I'm the founder of the company. I shouldn't be plugging in the equipment. We're still setting up. You're over there talking to your buddy that we did last year. I get that you want to network and schmooze a little bit, but look around and see what has to be done. Like see that other stuff too. This isn't just about you. You aren't the center of the universe.
You're right. I tell you, I'll tell you the FedEx story real quick, but I'll tell you, like, there's things, and I tell people this all the time. People will say, "Oh, can you do the following?" Well, that's not my job. I didn't truly have a job description. I just did whatever it took. And I remember we moved into our second location. It was kind of a better place than we were before in El Segundo. And right before the holidays, the guys were saying this would be a nice area. We should create like a lounge for when the influencers and VIPs come. We should make this like a lounge area. It was in the warehouse. We shut down from it was actually pretty cool then. Like probably 2 days before Christmas, all the way till whatever January 5th. It seemed like it was forever for me, because I like working. So, but what I did over that holiday spread, I built that lounge out. I put blue carpet down. That was our color. I painted. I put a big screen TV on. I went to IKEA and bought some furniture. But made it pretty. It was pretty badass. The guys came back from holiday, and I wasn't even there. I think I might have been off property, and they walked in and said, Bruce must have been here over the holidays, because I remember someone regurgitated that to me, and right. They didn't think, oh, who did this? They said Bruce must have come in over the holidays. But my point is, I just did it. If I heard someone whisper, "Hey, we should buy new trash cans," I'd go out and buy new trash cans. I didn't right. wait for someone to tell me, "Hey, it's your job." And that's where I encourage people. It's never anyone's job, but take charge of it. I promise you this: people will recognize the effort you're making, and you may think, "Oh, my job is just digital marketing." Really? Well, feel free to help other people. One thing I learned too, and I was always nervous about this, I used to say to Ron, well, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, because he'd say, just if you don't want to do it. I said, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. He goes, dude, as far as I'm concerned, chop people's fingers off here. If they don't want to do it, chop their fingers off and
Right.
push them out of the way. But I'm still to this day a little reluctant because someone, hey, I had a run in with someone in our company years ago. I was setting up at the booth at the Olympia, which is like the Super Bowl for the nutrition space. An hour before the doors are open, and I'm soaking wet, and all the executives are showing up, and I did like a roll call and we, team photo. And I said, we're gonna do the photo in 15 minutes. I said, if anyone could, we just have a few more things we got to set up. And I turned to one of the guys who's an executive, and I said, hey, do you mind grabbing some of those bars? He goes, I don't do labor, Bruce. That's his word. I don't do labor.
Right.
And I literally just kept moving. And one of the founders heard that. He told me later, he goes, there's just some people that are not going to get it in life. They're not going to get it. And when he said, I don't do labor, I was like, holy shit, like, what's that mean? Like, so
Right.
Anyway,
right.
You learn your lessons, but I'll tell you the FedEx story real quick if you want to hear it.
Yeah, no, I do. And I just want to insert something here.
Yeah.
Like everyone listening here, if everyone around you, this is, like you were saying in the Marine Corps, like you're fighting and you're competing in everything, whether it's marksmanship, whether it's land nav, whether it's everything is, you're trying to be the best that you can be. If you look at the world right now, how lazy people are, it's not hard to stand out. But imagine if everyone in the world thought like Bruce all the time, was always doing, like everyone around you was like anticipating. Do you remember the old TV show MASH? Of course you do.
Of course.
Remember Radar? Imagine everyone's like Radar, like finishing sentences for you, going, man, I'm so, boom, here's a drink. Thirsty, right? You're ready to go.
Yeah.
And if everyone was like that, we'd all be in competition to serve. We'd all be in competition to do that because that would be the contagious energy. So if you're listening carefully to this podcast, aside from it being very interesting with a fascinating human, there's strategy and psychology and lessons in this. And it's this overkill mindset we talk about of doing more than is expected of you, and people will notice if it's genuine, if it's sincere. But yes, absolutely, the FedEx story, because that's exactly what this is.
So, and part of even during the Quest journey was relationships we built, and we wanted people to remember us. But one particular thing and this resonates when anyone has a business, because you have FedEx, DHL, UPS, there's always people coming out of your offices or buildings. And I remember one day I was at the front, and the FedEx guy came in. Yeah, hey, can I use the restroom? He's talking to the receptionist. Of course, I say hi to him, and he goes down the hall. And I said, hey, I'm not here often, but what we should offer them water and some product. And she said, well, sometimes. I said, no, let's just make it a practice. So as the guy came back, he said, hey, here's a cold bottle of water. And I said, by the way, here's a couple boxes of bars. It was like a variety pack. And he said, oh, no. But he took them, obviously. And I told the receptionist, I said, we need to do that with everyone. DHL, anyone comes in here, let's just give them product, because, listen, that's how you build a business. You got to get people to experience it and talk about it. And a couple of weeks go by. I don't remember the sequence of events, but I run into him again. He said, hey, I got to thank you for those bars. He goes, you got a minute for a story? And of course. So I went out in the lobby with him, and he said, I brought those bars home. And it turns out my wife had heard about them because she's a nurse and a dietitian at the hospital. And basically what happened is I'm going to use it in one of my presentations. I just got to finish the org. It was like an org chart. And she brought some to work. They love them. The nurses on her floor love them. One of the doctors who she works with is an entrepreneur. He's a surgeon, but he also owns a CrossFit gym. He's like, wow, I got to get these in my CrossFit gym. This is just on what the wife did. They then are both involved with their kids' YSO soccer. All three of their girls play soccer. They brought them to the soccer, to the games, and the parents. By the way, they went out and bought some more too after ones I gave them. They brought them to soccer league, and one of the fathers on the soccer, who's a soccer coach, owns health clinics, like 7 health clinics. He goes, well, shit, I'm going to carry these in my health clinic. He sells, beauty aid stuff. And my point is, it just kept trickling down. He's telling me a story. This is only like 2 or 3 weeks after I met him. So I gave him more product, of course. And basically, I penciled this out. All the people that his wife touched, because she was a nurse and a surgeon and the CrossFit gym, and then on this side, the coaching. And all it was from the initial of, hey, let me share some product with you, the bottle of water. What it cost me, $10.
Right.
And it wasn't even about the cost of the product. It was just, here's a guy who's, these guys bust their ass for the money they make. He's soaking wet, 100 degrees out in LA. So I told her random act. I call it random acts of kindness go a long way in life. I said, who knows how people treat everyone, but let's just do what we can for the people who come to our office. And if they want to use the internet, we have a computer station there. But that parlayed, if I did the math, it's thousands of dollars worth of business. But also we've created lifetime customers and friends now. We're to this day we talk. He'll text me. His wife texts me, oh my God, because but it's kind of created a relationship over just being kind to someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And folks listening, it wasn't like I'm going to give this guy bars. He better do something for me. It was just how you are. That
giving with no expectation.
There you go.
And it really is. And by the way, I gave someone some product recently, and my buddy says, oh yeah, you could follow him on Instagram and give him a tag. I said, no, please don't. I said, and this is no bullshit. I say this to people. It's, the first rule of Fight Club is we don't talk about it. And I tell people that. I said, if you want to talk about it, great, but I'm not giving you this with any expectation. Please do not think I'm giving this with, if you do, wonderful. But if you don't, it's all good as well. And I really tell people that.
I love it. We got a couple of comments and questions I want to get to.
Yeah.
How are you for time? We're coming up on an hour. Yeah,
I'm good.
Okay, cool. So we've talked about this before. You've talked about this out loud, the fear of public speaking. And it's an interesting thing because everyone's got certain fears Marine, deployed, cop in LA. Holy shit, some of the things you've been involved in and seen and done. But still with all of that, flying all over the place, talking to people, still recognize, and this is, consistently the number one fear in the world for most people is public speaking. Mm-hmm. And this is more just an observation on, isn't it interesting? Do you ever look at that juxtaposition of, I've, moved towards a target with my gun out, possibly going to get in a gunfight here, might die. And I would almost rather do that than get on stage and talk. It's just, what are your whole thoughts on that?
That's true. And by the way, I was in two big shootouts in LA, one really big shootout. And I didn't even, everything slowed down and I had tunnel vision, but there was no fear. It was more like, hey, we're doing our job. It's interesting. The fear from speaking the heart rate, everything. Now people, just turn that into a feeling of excitement. Well, I don't know what causes it, because I really don't, because I'm very comfortable right now talking to you. But if we were in front of 50 people, like at Black Site, I'd be, looking for air.
Yeah. It's funny because Brian's the same, Goldstein.
Is he? Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Brian freaks out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because Pedro was going to have me talk at the last one at the lunchtime break, and he mentioned it, and then I didn't bring it up again. So but I need to step up my game, because at some point, what do I have to lose? I mean, maybe a little embarrassment, maybe.
I have a bunch of things I want to share with you.
Yeah.
For that, because I've been up many times. I remember one particular event. I was talking at the Airline Pilots Association event, and they brought me in to do some stuff with this is before 9/11 for passenger they called it air rage. People freaking out on. I should revisit that because things are flipping out now. But I'm in there, and then they asked me if I would go talk to the General Assembly, and I was just talking to the 52 directors from every state. So it was a room of 52 people, comfortable in there. They said, "Hey, you want to talk to the General Assembly?" I said, "Yeah, sure." They said, "Okay, tomorrow at such and such time." I said, "How many people?" They said, "I don't know, but it'll be in the auditorium." Well, I had no clue, but there were 500 people. And I had never spoken at something that big. And they told me to talk for 30 minutes. And then just before the event, when I was walking in the back, they said, "Hey, this guy went a little too long and he's a special presenter. Can you chop it to 20? And I'm like, holy shit, 20. And then I look at the curtain and I see 500 people, Bruce. And there's cameras in the back. They had news agencies there because it was the Airline Pilots Association. So there's CNN and all this shit there. I grabbed whatever phone was the phone of the day back then, and I call up my wife Jessie, and I said, I'm completely fucked. I just forgot everything I know. I started sweating. My heart started racing. And by this time I'd already been like talking a lot, but I told her, I said, I'm done. This is the end of our business, because I'm going to get up on stage and go, I'm here to talk to you about fear. Right? Anyways, so
you got through it.
Oh yeah. Afterwards, and here's what she told me. She said, just start talking. You'll be fine. I said, no, you don't understand. I forgot everything I know right now. I've got total stage fright. She goes, okay, just start talking. I said, no, this is real. She goes, you tell me this. You've called me with the same talk before. I go, I don't remember that. Tony, 10 minutes. Fuck. Okay. And I called her after. I go, that was my best talk ever. I don't even remember what I said. How did we lose Bruce? Bruce just disappeared. Hopefully he logs back in here. Elisa, do you know what happened?
No.
Okay. He probably got a
hear me?
phone call or something. Hey, Bruce, you there?
No. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We lost your video for some reason.
Oh, hold on. Let me see.
Yeah, just pop back. There you go. Boom.
Sorry.
Okay, cool. That's okay. Anyways, so that's a fun one, but I want to we'll talk after. I got some like really fun tips for you.
Okay.
I want to end on this thing here. I read it in your interview in LA Style magazine, and it's a quote from you. And if there's more you want to add to it, but I think it really sums up what my experience has been with you, your reputation from people when they talk about you, but also I believe it's part of the secret sauce that has fueled your amazing career. And you said, I'm always focused on changing people's lives for the better. And I just love that, because I believe that there's a lot of people out there who regurgitate, oh, we're here to serve, do your best, come with the giving hand, do that. But you can see that it's a tactic. It's not
right.
It's like, hey, so I did these 3 really good things for you. When do you do something good for me? As opposed to, like you said, no, I'm not tagging you here. You want to talk about it, that's fine. But that line, I want to read it again. I'm always focused on changing people's lives for the better. And I think it's amazing, because I believe that in you.
And it's true. I mean, whether it's someone needs access to my Rolodex, as they call it, I don't even know if people know what that means anymore, but my phone list,
Right.
or if I can help them with some business advice. It's not always about monetizing. I have a couple friends and acquaintances that they always want to monetize everything. And I said, listen, just focus on getting a good relationship going. Business will come. But
Right.
if I can help someone for free and it comes full circle, then it's paid off. Sometimes it hasn't. Sometimes I think maybe people have taken advantage of me, but that's okay. For the ones that haven't, and it's come full circle. So I truly do want to see people do better in life. And if I can help in any way, why not? Right. It doesn't cost anything, a little bit of time. Yeah.
And if you look at it as a as a rep, not a rep as like reputation, like a rep, like a bodybuilding rep. I did this.
Yeah.
What did I learn? Okay. I had my spider sense about this person, or I went this far and this happened. So everything's a rep. And at the end of it, just give yourself, grade yourself. Did you give yourself an A, a B, a C? What could you have done different or better? So even if it doesn't turn into anything, it's still, it's still intellectual capital, the wealth of experience.
Yeah. And I really do believe it. I like to bring value before I ask for anything. And it's funny, a friend of mine, we've become pretty good friends, but he would call me almost every week. Hey, Bruce, it's so-and-so. And at the end of the call, he goes, well, I just want to know what I can do to bring you value. And I finally said, hey, listen, man, I said, you say that, and I said, I know you well enough now. You say the same thing every conversation. You figure out what that looks like. You want to bring me value, bring me value. You know what I do for a living. You know what I try and do. And then he changed his narrative. And then he called me the next week and said, hey, I have a friend that has a podcast. I think you'd be a good fit. Oh, great. And then anyway, he did a couple things. None of them really came to fruition, but you know what I did? I sent him a $500 gift card to his favorite restaurant, because he changed his narrative, and he was actually trying to help me get some things.
Sure.
So it's kind of cool.
I dig it. Okay, let's take a couple questions. And then any guys on here, there's a bunch of you on here. Questions for Bruce, pop them in there. Here's one from Michael out of Spain. It popped up in here. Bruce, how do you feel about the whole modern executive protection versus bodyguard debate? I've worked with movie stars, music, and executives, but always describe myself as a bodyguard. I don't know if you're familiar with what he's talking about. I'm not. I think, Michael, what I'm guessing here is just the semantics of EP versus bodyguard. But I don't know. How are you reading that?
I think I'm reading it as, bodyguard used to be a thing. I mean, I used to call myself a bodyguard. As a matter of fact, I had the good fortune, believe it or not, the movie The Bodyguard. I worked at the end of that, and I actually did the premiere, but I did some technical advising right at the end when they were editing. I was pretty young then, but I was at the premiere. Everyone was a bodyguard then. Now executive protection, I think, just sounds more sophisticated, unless there might be something he's
right
that I'm not aware of. And you're right. I mean, executive protection is, for me, it's a business. It's not just a lughead standing next to the talent. I'm all about ingress and egress and safety planning. And there's times I'll plan an event and take hours, 24 hours to go figure out how we're getting in and out of the hotel without being seen and where the elevators are. So it's much more than just a bodyguard. It's literally protecting and planning, and staying out and really avoid any conflict,
Yeah. And so, Michael, I don't know if you're still on or if you can comment, we'll come back to it, but are you talking about the marketing stuff, and the semantics of saying, this guy's a sanitational engineer, and then someone goes, oh, you mean the janitor? Or I'm site security or the doorman,
right.
At the end of the day, if you know your job is, like, I remember working with a bunch of bodyguards once doing a seminar. This group hired me, and everyone in the room was executive protection bodyguard. And there were a couple of people that you could hear them like talking about, the fight they almost had and this time that they were being chased and this or that. And I said, look, guys, I'm not in your industry. I'm here to teach you some like de-escalation, nonviolent postures. And if something happens suddenly, the startle flinch conversion. I said, but my intuition tells me if you're in a car chase or someone's throwing a pie in your client's face and you missed it, then you fuck something up, right? And you shouldn't be bragging about the car chase. That means that while it can happen, the job is for nothing to happen, right? And so so the whole thing here, like while you were a bodyguard, you knew what the job was. In other words, my job is not to get shot or stabbed or punched, or to have my client get shot or stabbed or punched. And there's the research, like you said. How am I getting there? How am I getting out of here? What are the problems, and so on and so forth. So, kind of interesting. There was another question here. Thanks for that one, Michael. This one from John. Great guest. Opening questions regarding old school FTO and his tough love. Do you see a cultural difference with today's 25-year-old new officers and receptiveness? I don't know why it did not show the bottom of it. That's the end of it. So I don't know.
The FTO, which is a field training officer. So it's interesting. I was just talking to someone about this, and I don't think that will change in law enforcement because I think it's a budgetary thing. Like I said, we go to the academy for X amount. LAPD is actually probably one of the longest, but you get out, you have an training officer who all he's doing is teaching you his good and bad habits. And then you're the next generation, and you go on to teach your good and bad habits to the next kid. I don't know if anything's changed, even to the point where, after Rodney King and after some incidents, they would call it diversity training or cultural awareness training. And all that really meant, and I really had to take this in when I was involved with it, because they said, hey, Cardenas, you got to sign up for this 8-hour course. And some of it would be you go to a class and there's a nice person telling you how you need to treat people, and you leave, and that's it. And I thought, well, how effective was that? Like, I'm not really interacting with anyone. But what I think the departments do is it's a liability check. Okay, we taught them cultural diversity. We taught them how to be better human beings. And even now, I'm a reserve with the sheriffs, and I'll get a notification, hey, you got to finish this training. And I'll go on and watch a video. You can't obviously log out. You have to actually watch it. And there's a quiz about how you treat people, ethnic diversity, and now with the whole, transgender and all that stuff. I just did a course on that. But all it is a video. I'm thinking, it doesn't change me as a human being. I'm just reading the material and checking, yes, I understand it. So when he goes back to the training officer is just passing down generational what he's learned. I don't know if that'll ever change. There's a great training officers and then there's bad training officers, right? Just like there's great martial arts instructors and there's horrible ones.
Right.
It's who you elect to be. And unfortunately, sometimes you get stuck with the bad ones. Sometimes I always take this in everything with life. Martial arts work. I take the best of what I can get from everybody, right? And I think that's if you're a good cop, you kind of have to pick and, get what you can out of everyone and make your own decisions on what's good and bad.
And that goes back to what you said about your first FTO. You learned from some of the things you didn't like about him. You decided this is what I'm going to focus on. And so sometimes even having a bad lesson becomes a good lesson for us.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, he taught me how to handle myself too,
Yeah.
because there was fights we got into where I thought, oh, thank God he showed me, like, you can't be shy when you're wrestling on the ground.
Yeah.
You know?
No shit.
No, I mean, because at the end of the day, when you're out in the street, there's people who want to take your gun away sometimes. It's like, it's no joke. It's like, holy shit, like this is a real deal.
Right.
So
Yeah, 100%.
And a lot of cops have never, and the crazy thing is, you're in this field of training. There's cops that get through the academy, and tactical training to me was easy with LAPD. PR 24 and takedowns. That was like no brainer to me. I think that's why I graduated number one of that. But when you get in the field, there's people who have never been punched or pushed or even like flinched, and then like, wow, that's a reality check, right? When you're a cop and someone wants to punch you in the face.
Yeah, the training still is very lackluster. It's funny because Force Science Institute, one of the big police training, I don't know if you're familiar with them, you might have retired before they got big, but Force Science out of, I think they're in Chicago or St. Louis, but they do all these big reports. They just released a study of the startle response, and that it actually may, when trained properly, help officers respond quicker to incidents. And I'm like, yeah, okay, like we've been saying that since 1987 and have figured out every single modality. And it's just like crazy that decades later, and to the point of, like you're a good person or you're not a good person, somebody's saying, hey, like, look at this chart on diversity or communication or blah, blah, blah. You're reading it, you're memorizing something, you're answering a quiz the way you think the organization wants you to answer it. It's not really impacting you. Okay. Out of respect for your time, man, I want to, is there anything that we didn't cover that you would like to share with my audience? And before you do that, I just want to say, anyone out there, there's so many stories and so many important messages that Bruce has, that if you have your own podcast, or somebody in the space, like this is a nice message. This be a good human, do things because it's the right thing to do. Don't expect anything back, and think tactically a step ahead. Don't just do your and all. Like, I'll do this with my kids. Like just this morning, my daughter comes in. I know she was in a hurry, but she puts her glass in the sink, and then she runs out to go. She's got a client she's got to run to, and I said, hey, you're not going to believe this, but there's a dishwasher literally 6 inches away from the sink, and she's like, thanks, Dad. And out of there. I'm teasing her, but a lot of people will walk by that piece of garbage because they're not the garbage man.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have an important message beyond all the success that you've had, and so I want to help get that out there. It was the main thing of having you on here. But is there anything that we're going to get off and you go, fuck, I wish I told this story or shared this? Or
No, there's many stories. I think we could talk forever. I mean, I'd like to catch up again another time. I mean, I'm pursuing the podcast and the speaking and coaching. And, with help of people like you and Bedros, it's built a lot of confidence. Realize, I think there's a lot of coaches out there that coach in theory. I'm finding, hey, pay me this. I'm 29 years old, and I want to tell you how to invest in real estate, but they don't own anything. So
Right.
I'm quickly finding out there's legitimate coaches in there. So I want to, it sometimes becomes overwhelmed, but I realize I have something to offer. So I really want to start offering it to people, even if I change one life, right. And get someone's career in the right trajectory, it's worth it.
Yeah. 100%, man. Well, stay on a little bit after that. Yeah. I do want to, I'll come up to LA. We'll do lunch again at the Ivy.
I'd love to.
And I got some stuff for you to think about regarding the public speaking. It's pretty funny. Funny. When I say funny, it's easy. Like the process I share with people is funny, and it takes about 10 minutes, but it can really change pretty quickly how you are. So stick on a little bit. Thank you so much, my friend, for being on, and I'll be back in a second. Guys, everyone listening on this, Michael, I saw that you did answer there, and can't get to it right now, but we'll check it out online after. Thanks for logging in again. You're always on our show. Same thing for George and Marcus and a bunch of others. We really appreciate you. Share the show, comment, and we'll see you soon.